Amy Carter stepped out of the landing shuttle and took her first breath of alien air. The oxygen was thick and humid, filled with the scent of strange flowers and rotting leaves. She adjusted her rifle strap and looked around at the massive trees that stretched up toward the sky like green towers. "This place gives me the creeps," Jake Morrison said as he jumped down from the shuttle. He was carrying a heavy pack full of explosives and tools. Too quiet for my liking. Lisa Park was the last one out. She had her medical kit slung over her shoulder and was already scanning the area with her handheld device. "The air is safe to breathe," she announced. "But I'm picking up some weird readings from the forest." Amy nodded and checked her watch. They had been traveling for 6 months to reach this planet. The colony ship was still 3 weeks away, and their job was simple: find a good spot for the new human settlement and make sure it was safe. The planet looked perfect from space. Green forests, clean water, and no signs of intelligent life. "Let's get moving," Amy said. "We need to cover 20 miles before dark." The 3 humans walked into the forest. Their boots made soft sounds on the thick carpet of fallen leaves. Amy led the way with her rifle ready. Jake followed close behind, his eyes always moving as he watched for danger. Lisa brought up the rear, taking notes and collecting samples. The trees were bigger than anything on Earth. Some were so wide that 10 people holding hands could not reach around them. Strange birds called from high above, but they never saw any of them. The forest felt old and wild, like it had been growing for millions of years without any humans to disturb it. After 2 hours of walking, they found something that made them all stop and stare. "What the hell is that?" Jake whispered. Deep cuts were carved into the bark of a massive tree. The cuts were too straight and clean to be natural. They formed patterns that looked almost like writing. Each cut was as deep as Amy's arm and perfectly smooth. Amy ran her fingers along one of the cuts. "These weren't made by any animal," she said. "Look how precise they are." Lisa was taking pictures with her scanner. "The cuts are fresh, too. Maybe a few days old at most." Jake unzipped his pack and pulled out a small explosive charge. "Maybe we should head back to the shuttle." "No," Amy said firmly. "We have a job to do, but everyone stay alert." They kept walking, but now they moved more carefully. Amy noticed more cut trees as they went deeper into the forest. The patterns were different on each tree, but they all had the same precise, deliberate look. As the day wore on, Amy started to feel like they were being watched. She would catch movement in the corner of her eye, but when she turned to look, there was nothing there. The feeling grew stronger with each passing hour. "Amy," Lisa said quietly during their afternoon break, "my scanner is picking up something big moving parallel to our path. It's been following us for the last mile." Amy felt her heart speed up. "How big?" "Much bigger than us, and it's staying just out of range." Jake finished eating his energy bar and stood up. "I say we find out what it is. I don't like being hunted." Amy shook her head. "We stick to the mission, but we keep our weapons ready." They packed up and continued walking. The feeling of being watched grew stronger. Amy could hear branches breaking. In the distance, always just far enough away that she couldn't see what was causing the noise. As the sun began to set, they found a small clearing next to a stream. Amy decided it was a good place to make camp for the night. Jake started setting up the motion sensors while Lisa prepared their dinner. Amy was filling her water bottle at the stream when she saw it. A massive shape moved between the trees on the other side of the water. It was tall, much taller than a human, and it moved without making any sound. The shape was there for just a second, then it was gone. "Did you see that?" Amy called to the others. "See what?" Jake asked, looking up from the sensors. "Something big just moved past those trees." Jake grabbed his rifle and joined Amy by the stream. They both stared into the forest, but everything was still and quiet. "Maybe it was just shadows," Lisa suggested. Amy knew it wasn't shadows, but she didn't want to scare her team. They ate their dinner in silence and took turns keeping watch through the night. Nothing happened, but Amy barely slept. She kept thinking about the shape in the trees and the feeling that something was out there waiting. The next morning started quietly. They broke camp early and continued deeper into the forest. The cut trees became more common and the patterns on them grew more complex. Some trees had dozens of cuts covering their entire trunks. "It's like a map," Lisa said, studying one particularly marked tree, or maybe some kind of territorial marker. "Territory of what?" Jake asked, but nobody answered. Around noon, they reached the top of a small hill. Amy looked through her binoculars and saw a perfect spot for the colony about 5 miles ahead. A wide valley with a river running through it, surrounded by gentle hills. "That's our target," she announced. "We'll be there before dark." But as they started down the hill, Amy heard something that made her blood run cold. A low growling sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It was deep and threatening, like the sound a big cat makes before it attacks. All 3 humans froze and looked around. The forest had gone completely silent. Even the constant buzzing of insects had stopped. "What was that?" Lisa whispered. The growling came again, closer this time. Amy could feel the sound in her chest. "Move," Amy ordered. "Now." They started running down the hill. Behind them, Amy could hear something crashing through the trees. It was big and fast, and it was getting closer. Jake tripped and fell hard. His pack burst open, spilling explosives and tools across the ground. "My ankle," he gasped. "I think it's broken." Amy and Lisa helped him to his feet, but he could barely walk. The crashing sounds were getting louder. "Leave me," Jake said. "Both of you run." "No way," Amy replied. "We all go home together." But then it appeared. The creature stepped out from behind a tree just 50 feet away. It was 12 feet tall with dark green skin that seemed to shift and change color like a chameleon. Its arms were long and muscular, ending in claws that looked like curved knives. Its head was reptilian with yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the dim forest light. For a moment, nobody moved. The creature tilted its head and studied them like a scientist examining insects. Then it opened its mouth and made a sound that was part roar and part laugh. It moved faster than anything that big should be able to move. 1 second it was 50 feet away, the next it was right on top of them. Jake tried to raise his rifle, but the creature's claws swept across his chest before he could fire. He fell backward without making a sound. Lisa screamed and tried to run, but the creature caught her with its other hand. Amy heard bones breaking. Amy's training took over. She dropped to the ground and rolled behind a fallen log. Her mind was racing, trying to think of a way to fight something that big and fast. Her rifle would barely scratch it. The creature stood over Jake and Lisa's bodies, making that laughing sound again. Then it turned toward Amy's hiding spot. She could see its yellow eyes searching for her. Amy made the hardest decision of her life. She crawled over to where Lisa lay motionless and smeared her friend's blood all over her face and clothes. Then she lay down next to the bodies and forced herself to be completely still. The creature walked over and stood directly above her. She could smell its breath, which was like rotting meat. Its forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air inches from her face. Amy concentrated on slowing her breathing and her heartbeat, just like she had learned in survival training. She thought about cold things, dead things, anything to lower her body temperature. The creature made a snuffling sound as it examined her. She felt its claws touch her shoulder, but she didn't move. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the creature lost interest. It made one last growling sound and disappeared back into the forest. Amy waited until she couldn't hear anything except normal forest sounds. Then she waited another hour to be sure. When she finally opened her eyes, the sun was setting, and she was alone with the bodies of her friends. She was 20 miles from the shuttle with no communication equipment and a 12-foot alien hunter somewhere in the forest. But she was alive, and she intended to stay that way. Amy stayed still for another hour after the creature left. The forest around her was quiet except for the usual sounds of insects and distant bird calls. She could hear her own heart beating loud in her ears. When she finally moved, her whole body was stiff and sore. The blood from her friends had dried on her skin and clothes, making her feel sick, but she was alive, and that was what mattered now. She looked at Jake and Lisa lying motionless on the ground. They had been good people and good soldiers. They deserved better than this. But Amy couldn't help them now. She had to focus on staying alive and getting back to the shuttle. Amy gathered what supplies she could from their scattered equipment. Jake's pack had burst open when he fell, but she managed to find some food bars, a water filter, and a small knife. Lisa's medical kit was damaged, but still had some useful items. Most importantly, she found Jake's emergency beacon. It was designed to send a distress signal to their ship in orbit. Amy turned it on and waited for the green light that would tell her it was working. The light never came. The beacon was dead. Amy checked all the connections and tried changing the battery, but nothing worked. The creature must have damaged it somehow during the attack. She threw the useless device aside and tried to think of other options. The communication array back at the landing site was her only hope. It was 20 miles away through dangerous forest, but it was her only chance to call for help. Amy started walking as soon as she had gathered her supplies. The forest looked different in the dark. Shadows moved in ways that made Amy jump and reach for her rifle. Every sound made her think the creature was coming back. She forced herself to keep moving one step at a time. After walking for 2 hours, Amy smelled smoke. She followed the scent and found the remains of their first campsite. Everything was burned and destroyed. The creature had found their camp and torn it apart. Amy searched through the ashes but found nothing useful. The creature had been thorough. It had even destroyed their extra food and water supplies. This wasn't just an animal attack. This was something that understood what it was doing. She kept walking through the night, stopping only to rest for a few minutes at a time. By morning, she was exhausted and her feet were sore from walking in heavy boots, but she had covered almost half the distance back to the shuttle. Amy found a thick grove of trees and decided to rest during the day. She was too tired to keep walking, and she thought it might be safer to travel at night when she would be harder to see. She had just closed her eyes when she heard the sound of breaking branches. Amy grabbed her rifle and pressed herself against a tree trunk. The sounds were getting closer. Through the trees, Amy saw the creature moving slowly through the forest. It was following her trail, stopping every few feet to examine the ground. Its yellow eyes swept back and forth as it searched for signs of her passage. Amy held her breath and tried to make herself as small as possible. The creature was only 30 feet away from her hiding spot. She could see the muscles moving under, its changing skin and the way its claws left deep marks in the bark of trees. The creature stopped right next to her hiding place. Amy could smell its terrible breath and hear it breathing. She was sure it would find her, but after a long moment it moved on. Amy waited until she couldn't hear it anymore before she dared to move. She realized the creature was tracking her. By following her scent and the marks her boots left in the soft ground, she needed to be smarter about how she moved. Amy found a stream and walked in the water for over a mile. The cold water would wash away her scent and the rocky bottom wouldn't show her footprints. When she finally got out of the water, she rubbed mud all over her clothes and skin. The mud smelled awful, but it would help hide her human scent. Amy also found some berries that the local animals had been eating. She crushed them and rubbed the juice on her clothes. If she smelled more like the forest, maybe the creature would have a harder time tracking her. Amy traveled more carefully. After that, she stayed in the water whenever possible and avoided leaving clear tracks. She moved in a zigzag pattern instead of walking in a straight line. When she had to rest, she found places where the ground was hard and wouldn't show her footprints. By the second night, Amy was getting close to the landing site. She could smell the metal and fuel from the shuttle. But as she got closer, she realized something was wrong. There were no lights on anywhere. Amy crept to the edge of the clearing where they had landed. The shuttle was still there, but it looked different. As she got closer, she could see that the communication array had been destroyed. The metal antenna was twisted into a knot and the control panel was smashed. The creature had been here too. It had found their shuttle and destroyed their only way to call for help. Amy searched the shuttle but found that most of the equipment was damaged. The creature had been very careful about what it destroyed. It had left the basic life support systems alone, but it had wrecked anything that could be used to communicate with the outside world. Amy sat in the pilot's seat and tried to think. The shuttle could fly, but without the communication array, she couldn't call their ship in orbit to tell them where she was. The ship would eventually come looking for them, but that could take weeks. She didn't have weeks. She had maybe a few days of food left, and the creature was still hunting her. Amy decided to set some traps. If the creature was going to keep coming after her, she would make it pay a price. She used some of Jake's explosives to make simple bombs that would go off if something heavy stepped on them. She placed them along the paths leading to the shuttle. Amy also made some fake camps in different parts of the forest. She left pieces of her clothing and some food scraps to make it look like she was staying there. If the creature followed her scent, it would waste time checking these fake camps. On the third day, Amy heard an explosion in the distance. One of her traps had gone off. She hoped it had hurt the creature, but she wasn't counting on it. Something that big and tough might not be stopped by a simple bomb. Amy was right. That evening, she saw the creature again. It was moving more carefully now, but it didn't look injured. The explosion had just made it more cautious. Amy watched the creature from a safe distance. She noticed that it moved in patterns. It would search an area thoroughly, then move to the next area. It was systematic and patient, like a professional hunter. She also noticed that the creature seemed to see heat as well as normal light. When a small animal ran past, the creature's head would turn to follow it even when the animal was hidden behind trees. Amy realized she needed to be even more careful about hiding her body heat. Amy found some thick mud near a swamp and covered herself with it. The mud was cold and would help hide her body temperature. She also learned to move only when the wind was blowing, so her scent would be scattered in different directions. For the next 2 days, Amy played a deadly game of hide-and-seek with the creature. It would search for her during the day, and she would move at night. Sometimes she could hear it calling out with strange sounds that seemed almost like words. Amy began to wonder if the creature was trying to communicate with her. The sounds it made were complex and seemed to have patterns. Maybe it was more intelligent than she had thought. On the 5th day, Amy made a discovery that changed everything. She found a cave hidden behind a waterfall. The cave was full of bones and metal objects. Some of the bones looked human, but others were from different species she had never seen before. Amy realized that this creature had been hunting and killing visitors to this planet for a long time. She wasn't the first human it had encountered, and she wouldn't be the last unless she found a way to stop it. But looking at all those bones, Amy also realized something else. The creature kept trophies from its hunts. It collected things from the beings it killed. This wasn't just about food or territory. This was about something else entirely. Amy picked up a small metal device from the pile of alien artifacts. It looked like some kind of tool or weapon. As she examined it, the device started to glow with a soft blue light. Maybe some of this alien technology still worked. Amy gathered as many of the working devices as she could carry. She didn't know what they did, but they might give her an advantage against the creature. For the first time since the attack, Amy started to feel like she might have a chance to survive. The creature had been hunting her for 5 days. Now it was time for Amy to start hunting back. Amy spent hours in the trophy cave studying the alien devices. Most of them were broken or too strange for her to understand, but some of the simpler items still worked when she touched them. She found what looked like a small flashlight that produced a beam of red light. Another device made a high-pitched humming sound when she pressed a button on its side. The most interesting item was a flat rectangle covered with symbols that glowed when she held it. Amy carried the glowing rectangle to the back of the cave where the light was better. As she stared at the symbols, they began to change and move. Slowly, the alien writing transformed into letters she could read. The device was some kind of translator. Amy realized it was learning her language by watching her eyes move across the symbols. After a few minutes, words appeared that she could understand. Warning: Apex hunter present. Escape not recommended. Amy nearly dropped the device. It was giving her advice about the creature that had been hunting her. She touched different symbols on the screen and more words appeared. Species classification, Yautja. Hunting caste, follows honor code, collects trophies from worthy prey. Amy read through more information. The creature was called a Yautja, and it came from a race of hunters who traveled between planets looking for dangerous prey. They had been doing this for thousands of years. According to the translator, the Yautja only hunted beings they considered worthy opponents. They had a complex code of honor that governed how they fought and killed. Taking trophies from their prey was part of their religion and culture. Amy learned that the Yautja could see heat signatures and had excellent hearing. Their skin could change color to blend with their surroundings. They were incredibly strong and fast, but they also had weaknesses. The translator told her that Yautja respected courage and intelligence. They preferred to hunt prey that could fight back rather than helpless victims. If prey proved worthy enough, sometimes the Yautja would spare them as a sign of respect. Amy also discovered that the Yautja used advanced weapons and technology, but they often chose to hunt with simpler tools to make the challenge more fair. The creature hunting her was probably holding back its most powerful weapons. This information gave Amy hope, but it also worried her. If the Yautja respected worthy opponents, that meant it was testing her. It could have killed her easily several times, but it was letting her run so it could study how she fought back. Amy heard a sound from outside the cave. The Yautja was coming back. She quickly gathered the translator and a few other devices and hid deeper in the cave. There was a narrow passage at the back that led to another chamber. Amy crawled through the passage just as the Yautja entered the main cave. She could hear it moving around, checking its collection of trophies. It made several clicking sounds that almost sounded like words. Using the translator, Amy realized the creature was actually talking to itself. The clicks and growls were a language, and the device was converting them into words she could understand. Human shows promise. Clever. Use of mud and water. Set traps with explosive devices. Not like others of her species. Amy held her breath as she listened. The Yautja was evaluating her performance, like a teacher grading a student. Too early to take his trophy. Must test further. See if human can. Adapt and learn. Worthy prey becomes worthy opponent. The creature spent another hour in the cave, then left. Amy waited until she was sure it was gone before emerging from her hiding place. Now she understood what was happening. This wasn't just a hunt. It was a test. The Yautja was deliberately letting her survive so it could see how she would respond to different challenges. It was studying her the same way she was studying it. The question was whether she could prove herself worthy of respect, or if she would eventually become just another trophy. Amy decided to use this knowledge to her advantage. If the Yautja wanted to test her, she would give it a test it would never forget. But first, she needed to learn more about her enemy. Amy used the translator to study the other artifacts in the cave. She learned about different species the Yautja had hunted over the centuries. Some were strong and fast, others were intelligent and cunning. The ones that survived longest were the ones who could adapt and think creatively. One set of bones belonged to a species called the Kiande Ameda. According to the translator, they were extremely dangerous creatures that the Yautja considered the ultimate prey. The fact that there were Kiande Ameda bones in this cave meant this particular Yautja was an experienced and deadly hunter. Amy also found weapons from other species. Some were energy weapons that still held a charge. Others were blade weapons made from materials she didn't recognize. She selected a few items that might be useful and hid them around the cave. Over the next 2 days, Amy used the cave as her base while she planned her strategy. She studied the Yautja's hunting patterns and learned to predict where it would search next. She also used the translator to decode more of the creature's vocalizations when it was nearby. Amy discovered that the Yautja was getting impatient. It had been testing her for over a week, and it was ready to move to the next phase of the hunt. According to its honor code, it would soon challenge her to direct combat. Amy knew she couldn't win a straight fight against something that big and strong, but she didn't have to win. She just had to prove she was worthy of respect. The translator had mentioned that some prey earned their freedom by demonstrating exceptional courage or intelligence. Amy began leaving messages for the Yautja, using the same symbol system she had seen carved into the trees. She used a sharp stone to carve simple pictures and words onto tree bark near the cave. The messages were challenges, taunts, and warnings. Human knows you watch. Human ready to fight. Come face to face if you dare. The Yautja found her messages and responded with its own carvings. The symbols were more complex, but the translator helped Amy understand them. Young human shows spirit, but spirit without skill leads to death. Prove your worth or join the others. Amy realized the creature was referring to the bones in its cave. All those other species had failed the test. They had shown spirit but not enough skill to earn respect. Amy decided it was time to take the offensive. She couldn't keep running forever, and the Yautja was growing tired of the game. She needed to do something that would surprise it and prove she was different from its previous prey. Amy spent a day preparing traps and false trails around the cave area. She used the alien weapons she had found to create surprises the Yautja wouldn't expect. She also prepared several escape routes in case her plan failed. On the 10th day since the attack on her team, Amy left a final message carved into a tree near the cave entrance. "Human waits in the place of trophies. Come and take yours if you can." Then Amy went back to the cave and waited. She positioned herself in the main chamber with the alien weapons within easy reach. The translator device was clipped to her belt, ready to help her understand whatever the Yautja might say. Amy didn't have to wait long. As the sun began to set, she heard the familiar sound of heavy footsteps approaching the cave. But this time, the Yautja wasn't trying to be quiet. It was walking openly, announcing its presence. The creature appeared at the cave entrance and stopped. For the first time, Amy got a clear look at her enemy in good light. The Yautja was even larger than she had thought, with muscles that rippled under its changing skin. Its face was hidden behind a metal mask that covered the upper part of its head. The Yautja made a series of clicking sounds, and the translator converted them to words. "Human has chosen to face death with honor. This is good. Many run until they die tired. You stand and wait. This shows courage." Amy stood up from behind the pile of bones where she had been hiding. She held one of the alien energy weapons in her hands, though she wasn't sure how to use it properly. "I'm not here to die," Amy said, hoping the translator would convert her words into something the Yautja could understand. "I'm here to prove that humans deserve respect." The Yautja tilted its head and made more clicking sounds. "Prove? How does prey prove anything to predator?" Amy smiled, even though she was terrified. "By showing that sometimes the prey can become the predator." The Yautja stared at Amy for a long moment after she spoke. Its yellow eyes seemed to glow brighter behind the metal mask. Amy could hear it breathing, a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the cave. "Prey becoming predator," the creature said through the translator. "This has not happened before. You interest me, small human." Amy kept the alien weapon pointed at the Yautja, though her hands were shaking. "Then you know I'm not like the others whose bones fill this cave." The Yautja made a sound that might have been laughter. "The others thought they were different too. They all believed they could survive. Their bones say otherwise." Amy looked around at the hundreds of skulls and bones that lined the cave walls. Each one represented a being who had failed this same test. The thought made her stomach turn, but it also made her angry. "Maybe they failed because they played by your rules," Amy said. "I don't plan to do that." The Yautja tilted its head. "What rules do humans follow?" Amy smiled grimly. "We make our own rules as we go." Before the Yautja could respond, Amy pressed the trigger on the alien weapon. A bolt of blue energy shot across the cave and struck the creature in the chest. The Yautja stumbled backward but didn't fall. Amy didn't wait to see how much damage she had done. She ran toward one of the escape tunnels she had prepared. Behind her, the Yautja roared with anger and surprise. Amy had spent hours exploring the cave system. She knew about passages the Yautja might not have discovered yet. She crawled through a narrow tunnel that led to a different part of the cave network. The Yautja was too big to follow her through the small tunnel. Amy could hear it searching for another way around, its claws scraping against stone as it moved. Amy emerged in a chamber she had prepared earlier. She had hidden several of the alien devices here, along with some of Jake's remaining explosives. Now came the hardest part of her plan. Amy used the translator to send a message through the cave system. She had learned that the device could broadcast sound as well as translate it. "You want to test me?" Her voice echoed through the caves. "But I've been testing you too, and I found your weakness." The Yautja's roar of rage came from somewhere nearby. Amy could tell it was moving toward her voice. "Impossible. Yautja have no weakness." Amy laughed, and the sound bounced off the cave walls. "Everyone has a weakness. Yours is pride. Amy triggered the first of her prepared traps. An explosion shook the cave, bringing down rocks to block one of the main passages. The Yautja would have to find a different route to reach her. You think you're the perfect hunter, Amy continued, but perfect hunters don't let their prey prepare the battlefield. Amy moved to her next position. She had spent 2 days setting up this plan, using everything she had learned about the cave system and the Yautja's behavior. The creature appeared at the far end of the chamber, moving more carefully now. Amy had hurt it with the first shot, though not badly. She could see green blood on its chest where the energy bolt had hit. Clever human, the Yautja said, but cleverness will not save you. The creature raised its arm and Amy saw a strange weapon attached to its wrist. 3 metal blades extended from the device, each one longer than her hand. Amy dove behind a pile of rocks just as the Yautja lunged forward. The creature was incredibly fast, but Amy had expected that. She rolled to the side and pressed a button on one of the alien devices she was carrying. A bright flash filled the chamber, temporarily blinding both of them. Amy had found the device among the alien artifacts and figured out it was some kind of flashbang. She kept her eyes closed when she triggered it, but the Yautja was caught off guard. While the creature was still stunned, Amy ran to her next prepared position. She could hear the Yautja stumbling around behind her, making angry clicking sounds. Amy reached a narrow ledge that overlooked the main trophy chamber. From here, she could see the entire collection of bones and artifacts. More importantly, she could see the explosives she had hidden throughout the chamber. The Yautja recovered from the flash and followed her. It climbed up to the ledge with surprising grace for something so large. Amy backed away until she was pressed against the cave wall. Nowhere left to run, human, the Yautja said. You have fought well. I will make your death quick. Amy held up the detonator she had made from Jake's explosives. You're right, I can't run anymore, but I can still choose how this ends. The Yautja stopped when it saw the device in Amy's hands. Its eyes looked from the detonator to the explosives hidden around the trophy chamber below. You would destroy the sacred collection, the creature said. Amy could hear surprise in its translated voice. If that's what it takes, Amy replied. Your trophies mean nothing to me. The Yautja took a step back. For the first time since the hunt began, it looked uncertain. Amy pressed her advantage. You've spent centuries collecting these trophies, proof of all your victories, all those beings you hunted and killed. You probably see this collection as your life's work. The creature's breathing had changed. Amy realized she had found something the Yautja actually cared about. But here's what you don't understand about humans, Amy continued. We don't fight for trophies or honor or glory. We fight to survive. And when survival is on the line, we'll destroy anything that stands in our way. Amy started backing toward another tunnel entrance while keeping the detonator visible. The Yautja watched her but didn't follow. You want to test me, Amy said. Here's your test. Let me leave this planet alive, or watch your precious collection turn to dust. The Yautja made a low growling sound. This is not honorable combat. Amy laughed. Honor is something you can afford when you're not fighting for your life. I don't have that luxury. Amy had reached the tunnel entrance. From here, she could escape to another part of the cave system or back to the surface. But she didn't move. Yet. I know what you're thinking, Amy said. You're wondering if you can reach me before I trigger the explosives. Maybe you can. You're faster and stronger than me. But are you willing to bet your entire collection on it? The Yautja stood perfectly still for almost a minute. Amy could see it calculating odds and considering options. Finally, it spoke. What do you propose, human? Amy felt a surge of hope. The Yautja was actually willing to negotiate. Simple, Amy said. You let me reach my shuttle and leave this planet. In exchange, I don't blow up your trophy room. The Yautja made clicking sounds that the translator couldn't convert. Amy guessed it was thinking in its own language. And if I refuse? The creature asked. Amy held up the detonator. Then we both lose. You lose your trophies and I lose my life. But at least I'll know that every being whose bones are in that chamber will be avenged. The Yautja looked down at its collection, then back at Amy. She could see the conflict in its posture. Everything about its culture said it should fight to the death rather than negotiate with prey. But Amy had given it something more important than honor to consider. She had given it a choice between victory and preservation. "You have learned much about Yautja ways," the creature said finally, "but you do not understand the most important lesson." Amy's heart sank. She thought she had convinced it. "The hunt is not about killing," the Yautja continued. "It is about proving worth. You have already proven yours." Amy stared at the creature in confusion. "What do you mean?" The Yautja reached up and began removing its metal mask. "You fought with intelligence instead of strength. You used your environment as a weapon. You turned your weakness into advantage. These are the marks of a true hunter." The mask came off, revealing the Yautja's face. It was reptilian but more human-like than Amy had expected. Scarred and weathered, but with intelligent eyes. "I am not your enemy, Amy Carter," the Yautja said, using her real name for the first time. "I am your teacher, and the lesson is complete." Amy stared at the Yautja's unmasked face in shock. Without the metal mask, the creature looked less frightening and more intelligent. Its eyes held something that might have been respect. "You knew my name all along," Amy said. It wasn't a question. The Yautja nodded slowly. "I studied your team before the hunt began. Amy Carter, squad leader; Jake Morrison, explosives expert; Lisa Park, field medic. I learned about each of you." Amy felt anger rising in her chest. "Then you planned to kill them from the start." "No," the Yautja said firmly. "I planned to test all of you. Your teammates failed their tests in the first moments. They relied on weapons and panic instead of thinking. You were different." Amy lowered the detonator slightly but kept it ready. "Different how?" The Yautja gestured toward the cave around them. "When I killed your friends, you did not try to fight me with your small weapon. You played dead. That showed intelligence and control. Most beings panic and die quickly." Amy remembered those terrible moments when Jake and Lisa were killed. She had felt like a coward for not trying to fight. "I thought I was being weak," Amy said. "Weakness would have been dying uselessly," the Yautja replied. "You chose to survive so you could learn and adapt. That is the mark of a true hunter." The Yautja began walking slowly around the ledge, but it kept its distance from Amy. She noticed it was no longer holding its wrist blades in a threatening position. "Over the past days, you have impressed me," the creature continued. "You used mud and water to hide your scent. You set traps with your teammates' explosives. You found my trophy chamber and learned to use alien technology. Each challenge made you stronger and smarter." Amy thought about everything that had happened since the attack. She had been so focused on survival that she hadn't realized she was being tested. "Why didn't you just kill me when you had the chance?" Amy asked. The Yautja made clicking sounds that might have been laughter. "I could have killed you many times, but killing you would have been wasteful. You showed potential that deserved to be tested." Amy felt confused and angry at the same time. "So this was all just a game to you?" "Not a game," the Yautja said seriously. "A trial. In Yautja culture, we must prove our worth through combat. But sometimes we find beings who prove their worth in other ways. You have done this." The Yautja reached into a pouch on its belt and pulled out a small metal object. Amy tensed, thinking it might be a weapon, but the creature simply held it out toward her. "This is a mark of respect," the Yautja said. "It shows that you have earned your place as a hunter, not prey." Amy looked at the metal object. It was carved, with symbols that seemed to tell a story. According to the translator, it was some kind of honor token. "I don't want your respect," Amy said. "I want my friends back." The Yautja's expression changed. For a moment, it looked almost sad. "Death is final even for hunters," the creature said. "But their deaths were not meaningless. They died as warriors facing a superior opponent. That is an honorable end." Amy felt tears running down her face. She had been holding back her grief for days, focused only on staying alive. Now it all came flooding back. "They were good people," Amy said. "They didn't deserve to die." "No being deserves death," the Yautja replied. "But all beings must face it. The question is whether we face it with courage or fear. Your friends chose courage. Amy wiped her eyes and looked down at the detonator in her hands. She no longer felt like using it. The anger that had been driving her was fading, replaced by exhaustion and sadness. What happens now? Amy asked. The Yautja put its mask back on, transforming once again into the frightening hunter Amy had first encountered. Now you leave this world, the creature said. Your test is complete. You have proven that humans are worthy of respect. Amy started to walk toward the tunnel that would lead her back to the surface, but the Yautja's voice stopped her. There is one more thing you must know, the creature said. This planet is now marked as a hunting preserve. Other Yautja will come here to test themselves against worthy prey. Amy turned back to face the creature. Other humans will die. Perhaps, the Yautja said. Or perhaps they will prove themselves as you have done. That choice will be theirs to make. Amy realized what the creature was telling her. This planet would become a trap for any humans who landed here. She had to warn others to stay away. Will you hunt me again if I come back? Amy asked. The Yautja shook its head. You have passed the test. I will not hunt you again, but other Yautja may not see the marks of your trial. They may challenge you as I did. Amy understood. She was safe from this particular hunter, but not, from others of its kind. Amy made her way back through the cave system to the surface. The Yautja didn't follow her, but she could feel it watching until she was out of sight. The alien honor token felt heavy in her pocket. The walk back to the shuttle took most of the night. Amy's legs were shaking with fatigue by the time she reached the landing site. The shuttle looked exactly as she had left it, damaged but functional. Amy spent the next day repairing what she could of the communication system. The main array was destroyed, but she managed to get a short-range beacon working. It would be enough to signal their ship when it came looking for them. 3 days later, Amy saw lights in the sky. The colony ship had arrived and was sending shuttles to investigate why her team hadn't reported in. Amy activated her beacon and waited for rescue. Captain Ben Rogers was the first person to reach her. He was a stern man with gray hair and worried eyes. Where are the others? He demanded as soon as he saw Amy. Amy looked past him at the shuttle full of colonists and soldiers. Dead, she said simply. Killed by something that lives in the forest. Amy spent the next hour telling her story to Captain Rogers and his officers. She showed them the alien translator and the honor token. She explained about the Yautja and its hunting culture. Most of the officers looked skeptical until Amy led them to the cave system. The sight of hundreds of alien skulls and bones convinced them that Amy was telling the truth. We need to establish the colony somewhere else, Amy told Captain Rogers. This planet is too dangerous. The captain looked around the trophy chamber with obvious disgust. What kind of monster collects bones like this? Not a monster, Amy said quietly. A hunter. And now it considers this planet its territory, Captain. Rogers made the decision to abandon the colonization of the planet. The colony ship would continue to another system where they could build their new home safely. As they prepared to leave, Amy took one last look at the forest where she had spent the most terrifying week of her life. Somewhere out there, the Yautja was probably watching them go. Amy touched the honor token in her pocket. She had survived something that should have killed her. She had learned things about herself that she never knew, and she had earned the respect of one of the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. But most importantly, she had prevented other humans from walking into the same trap. Jake and Lisa's deaths had not been in vain if their sacrifice saved future colonists from the same fate. Amy boarded the shuttle and strapped herself in for the journey back to the colony ship. As they lifted off, she saw something moving at the edge of the forest, a tall figure watching their departure. Amy raised her hand in a gesture that might have been a salute or a goodbye. After a moment, the figure raised its own hand in response. The shuttle climbed toward space, leaving the hunting planet behind. Amy closed her eyes and tried to rest. She had survived the ultimate test and lived to tell about it. Not many humans could say the same. But as she drifted off to sleep, Amy wondered if she would ever truly escape that forest. Some experiences change a person forever. Fighting for survival against an alien hunter was definitely one of them. The colony ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying Amy toward a new life among the stars. Behind them, the hunting planet waited silently for the next test to begin,